My younger brother was about to take his college entrance exams. My mother forced him to eat raw pig's brain, believing it would boost his brain power. She was convinced that eating what it benefits, brains for brains, and that eating it raw would maximize its effect. In my previous life, I tried to stop her, to correct her misguided belief. As a result, my brother Lucas, despite not eating the pig's brain, performed quite well on his exams. However, my mother's longtime rival, a friend she'd competed with for half her life, had a daughter who performed exceptionally, far exceeding expectations. My mother, Mrs. Tran, furious and humiliated, accused me of deliberately sabotaging Lucas by preventing him from eating the pig's brain. During an argument with him, our house caught fire. My mother and brother locked me inside. I was burned alive. When I was reborn, I returned to the exact moment my mother was preparing to force Lucas to eat raw pig's brain. This dish is the essence of our ancestors' wisdom. Eating what it benefits is absolutely infallible. Even modern experts say that simpler preparation preserves more nutrients. Combining ancient and modern beliefs, pig's brain inherently nourishes the brain, so wouldn't eating it raw retain all its nutrition? I am your mother, your own mother, how could I ever deceive you? This pig's brain was freshly slaughtered, eat it quickly. At the dining table, Mrs. Tran held a bowl of glistening, bloody raw pig's brain towards Lucas. He covered his nose and recoiled, his face a mix of disgust and fear. As he backed away, he turned to look at me. "Lily, quick, stop, mother. She's gone mad. How can anyone eat raw pig's brain?" The hopeful light in Mrs. Tran's eyes flickered out, replaced by a dark, cold expression. Calling her, "What can your sister do? What the hell does she know?" From childhood, she never listened, always demanding stir-fries, seasoned dishes, always eating in ways that destroyed all the nutrients. Eating like that is as good as eating nothing. It's a miracle she's lived this long with such poor nutrition. Why waste time calling her? Mrs. Tran spoke, pushing the bowl of raw pig's brain closer to Lucas's mouth, urging him to eat quickly. Lucas scrambled a few steps, hiding behind the sofa, behind me. Seeing this familiar scene, I froze for a moment before realizing I had been reborn. Reborn to the very moment Mrs. Tran wanted to force him to eat raw pig's brain, believing eating what it benefits, and that simple or no preparation preserved maximum nutrition. Individually, these two ideas weren't entirely wrong, but combined, they became an extreme fallacy. She believed cooked pig's brain benefited the brain, so eating it raw must be even more potent. Therefore, she treated raw pig's brain as a treasure, forcing Lucas, who was about to take his college entrance exams, to eat it immediately. In my previous life, Lucas had also looked at me for help, his face filled with the same helplessness as now. The exams were only a few days away. If he got poisoned, it would ruin his chances. In my previous life, I tried every method to convince Mrs. Tran. Finally, she reluctantly agreed. Lucas took his exams safely. He performed quite well, scoring more than 10 points above his usual average. Our whole family should have rejoiced, but Mrs. Tran returned with a dark expression. She told me in an icy voice, "My friend also has a child taking college entrance exams this year. Before this, she bought so many supplements for her child, including pig's brain. Her daughter's academic performance is on par with your brother's, but just by taking supplements, she scored hundreds of points higher than your brother. Eating pig's brain, eating what it benefits, really works. But you, Lily, you're maliciously obstructing, deliberately trying to harm your brother and make him fail his exams." After hearing that, Lucas also began to waver. Mrs. Tran looked at me with immense resentment. Actually, through work, I knew Mrs. Tran's friend. My mother and that friend had been competing with each other for years. From work, titles, marriage, and later, their children. That friend gave birth to a son, while Mrs. Tran gave birth to me. My mother resented me for not being a son, for not bringing her pride. She tried for another 6 years, risking her life to give birth to Lucas. She thought having both a son and a daughter would make her superior to her friend, who knew her friend also gave birth again, having both a son and a daughter. From then on, the competition shifted to academic achievements. Mrs. Tran was certain Lucas would be more studious than her friend's child. But to her dismay, her friend's daughter scored nearly 100 points higher on the college entrance exam. The real reason wasn't because of eating pig's brain or the idea of not needing to study, as my mother claimed, but because her friend had hired a professional nutritionist. Expensive ingredients were used to create scientifically balanced meals. Pig's brain was only a small part of it and was always cooked. Most importantly, her friend's daughter was inherently more academically gifted than Luca's. Scoring 100 points higher was completely normal for her. In this battle of college exam scores, Mrs. Tran lost again. She refused to acknowledge the problem stemmed from herself and Luca's, instead placing all the blame on me. Falsely accused without cause, I put down the dough I was kneading. I was about to open my mouth to argue back, but Mrs. Tran didn't give me a chance. She rushed forward and slapped me directly across the face. I wanted to resist. Lucas lunged forward, holding me tightly. Mother has a way to boost brain power and scores. Why do you keep getting in the way? Do you just enjoy seeing me suffer through studies, only to end up not as good as others, right? You evil witch, you don't want me to live in peace, so don't expect to live in peace either. Lucas glared at me, grabbing handfuls of flour and throwing them relentlessly at my face and body. On the stove, a pot of soup was simmering. The flour, hitting the flames, exploded. Standing closest, I was knocked unconscious instantly by the blast. Mrs. Tran and Lucas panicked and fled, deliberately locking the kitchen door from the outside, ensuring my previous life ended in a fiery inferno. My consciousness returned. I gasped for air, my whole body trembling uncontrollably. Those two wretched people. One refused to admit her child was inferior, then blamed me. The other, lazy to study, only willing to learn when forced, and then blamed me for not giving him a shortcut when he couldn't match others' scores. In my previous life, I was truly blind, worrying about them, even trying to reason with them. In this life, even if they eat pig feces, it has nothing to do with me. I took a deep breath, steadying my emotions. Looking up, I saw Mrs. Tran holding the bowl of pig's brain, standing directly in front of me, glaring. Just like in my previous life, she silently demanded, "If you know what's good for you, step aside. Don't block the way." I looked at her coldly and scoffed. "Animals like to eat raw heads, I understand. Of course I won't stop you." Mrs. Tran froze, her brows furrowed in disbelief. "What did you say?" "I said you're an animal, and I won't stop an animal from eating raw food." Mrs. Tran's face turned purple with rage. She raised her hand to slap me. They had killed me once. Now my fury blazed, and my spirit had never felt so invigorated. I was faster than her. I grabbed her wrist, twisted it, and slapped her back with a resounding crack. The sharp sound echoed, leaving a clear five-fingered imprint on her face. "You dare hit me?" Mrs. Tran clutched her face, her eyes wide with shock and utter astonishment. Seeing this, Lucas lunged forward. "Lily, stop. Why are you hitting Mother for no reason?" I scoffed, looking directly at my brother. "It was for no reason when she cursed me, saying I wouldn't live past your college entrance exam day. It was for no reason when she never cooked a single meal for me." Lucas opened his mouth but was speechless. Over the years, Mrs. Tran had blamed me for not bringing her pride. She treated me with cruel stinginess, boiling a few miserable greens and tossing them on the table, telling me to eat. But I was stubborn and refused. If it weren't for Mr. Tran secretly cooking for me, I might have starved to death long ago. Seeing me eat well every day, Mrs. Tran's eyes would turn red with anger. "Low class is still low class. You don't know how to appreciate the original taste of food, always eating seasoned junk, utterly devoid of nutrition. You eat dirty food, sooner or later you'll die from illness." Mr. Tran would criticize her, and she would redirect her anger at me, humiliating my food, humiliating everything that belonged to me. In my previous life, thinking she was my mother, I gritted my teeth and endured. But enduring only made her worse, ultimately leading to my death. Now that I've died once, all debts, old and new, will be settled. I won't tolerate it anymore. Mrs. Tran saw my icy expression and felt a flicker of fear, not daring to argue back. She turned to Lucas. "What are you standing there gawking for? Hurry up and eat the pig's brain. Those trash eaters don't want you to have nourishing food, they just want you to be ignorant. If you don't eat, don't you want to score high on your exams? Or do you want to be low class with an undeveloped mind?" Lucas's face was rigid. He still wanted to refuse. He swallowed hard. I suddenly remembered that in my previous life, he had pushed me into the inferno. I crossed my arms over my chest and spoke coldly. "The eating habits of you animals, I won't interfere anymore. Do whatever you want. What the hell does it have to do with me? Eat it or not, it's your choice." The air grew thick and heavy. Finally, Lucas said nothing. He trembled as he took the bright red pig's brain. Under Mrs. Tran's provocative gaze, Lucas took a small bite. Almost the instant he bit down, he let out a retch and vomited violently. Mrs. Tran's eyes wavered slightly. She immediately turned to glare at him, full of reproach. "What kind of act is this, you brat? Aren't you on Mother's side?" His mouth was still slick with gastric juices. Lucas shook his head miserably. No, no, this is too fishy. Mrs. Tran was half convinced, half skeptical. She took the pig's brain and lightly licked it with the tip of her tongue. Her expression changed instantly, but because I was still there, she didn't want to lose face. She forced herself to suppress her reaction, speaking awkwardly. It's just a little bit, why are you making such a fuss? This pig was just slaughtered today, how can something so fresh be fishy? Eat it quickly. Lucas wiped his mouth, repeatedly looking up and backing away. No matter what, he refused to eat anymore. Glancing at me, Mrs. Tran softened her tone and began to coax him, hitting his weak point. Eat it, it's good for your brain. Later, you won't have to work hard, wake up early, or stay up late studying. Didn't you say studying was tiring? That's because your brain isn't developed enough. Eat this raw pig's brain, and studying will be easy later. Lucas's eyes, full of resistance, softened. Really? Of course, it's true. In my previous life, Lucas was deceived by Mrs. Tran, leading him to resent me to the bone and study relentlessly without daring to rest. In this life, at this very moment, there was a way to achieve high scores without hard work. He was immediately tempted, giving Mrs. Tran a look. Receiving some encouragement, he closed his eyes, gritted his teeth, and took a large bite. Whether it was blood or cerebral fluid, it spilled from his mouth, splattering his face and head, but he paid no attention. He chewed and swallowed, meticulously eating the entire raw pig's brain. In no time, the whole brain was down his throat. When Mrs. Tran saw him finish it all, a triumphant smile spread across her face. She looked at me as if she had just won a grand prize. I gave a faint smile, turned, and left the room. On the surface, Lucas, due to his inherent laziness, had chosen to side with her, making it seem like she truly won. But in reality, they had suffered a terrible defeat. Whether animals run on land, swim in water, or fly in the sky, their bodies all carry parasites. High temperatures are required to kill over 90% of parasites, ensuring food safety. Eating raw food like this is not only less nutritious, but also extremely prone to parasitic infections. But the one who ate the raw pig's brain was Lucas. If he got infected with parasites, it would only be him, and it had nothing to do with me. Eat up, eat a lot. You won't even know how you died when the time comes. In this life, with no one to dissuade her, Mrs. Tran became even more convinced of her nutritional philosophy. Almost every day, she bought fresh, raw pig's brain and made Lucas eat it. At first, Lucas struggled to swallow, but he gradually got used to the taste. Moreover, with Mrs. Tran's promise that eating raw pig's brain meant less studying but still good grades, he even looked forward to eating it every day. After 2 weeks, Lucas had a test. But his scores weren't higher. On the contrary, because he had reduced his study time, his grades were even worse. When I happened to see his scores, Mrs. Tran became defensive. Accumulation takes time, that's normal. My child eats such nourishing food, high scores are only a matter of time. Some people shouldn't even dream of mocking us, they should worry about themselves dying from malnutrition instead. I didn't hold back, retorting immediately. All 3 years of high school, weak grades throughout 10th and 11th grade, and he has to wait until 12th grade to explode. Great, when he explodes, I'm sure he'll explode. On a factory production line, exploding and working overtime for a high salary, huh? Mrs. Tran glared. Who are you cursing, you witch? My child will be a dragon among men later. A low-class person like you, who eats greasy, toxic junk, you deserve to say that? Just you wait. My child's scores will definitely soar. But her hopes were shattered. In subsequent tests and mock exams, Lucas's scores became lower and lower. In this life, without my intervention, Mrs. Tran's belief in raw pig's brain-boosting brain power began to waver. After much thought, she cut down Lucas's playtime and forced him to study more. Lucas protested. Didn't you say eating raw pig's brain boosts the brain? So after eating it, I wouldn't need to study anymore? You went back on your word. So all those dozens of pig brains I ate were completely wasted. Mrs. Tran's face turned cold, and she snapped. Don't talk back. Listen carefully. Everything I do is for your own good. Just listen. Lucas's laziness was deeply ingrained in his personality. In my previous life, he couldn't be lazy and had to study hard, to the point where he resented me and wanted to kill me. In this life, the person forcing him to study hard was Mrs. Tran. Although he said nothing, the way he looked at Mrs. Tran had changed. With no more playtime, Lucas thought the dozens of pig brains he'd eaten were for nothing. But he was wrong, they weren't wasted at all. From the moment he started eating raw pig's brain, his body had begun to subtly change. Over 2 months first, he suddenly developed an insatiable appetite, eating twice as much as a normal person at each meal. Then, in the middle of the night, he suddenly developed a high fever and vomited everything he had eaten during the day. Next, his eyes became bloodshot, swollen, and protruded frightfully. Mrs. Tran panicked. How can this be? Our daily food is clean, nutritious, and safe, so why does it look like food poisoning? Her face a mess of worry, Mrs. Tran stormed into my room, grabbed my collar, and pulled me up. You vile wretch, Lily, you harmed my son, didn't you? You eat trash and ended up a good-for-nothing, but you're still jealous of us eating clean, nourishing food. If anything happens to my son, you'll have to pay with your life. I forcefully pushed Mrs. Tran away, looking at her with utter contempt. I'm not as idle as you, nor as malicious as you think. You want to accuse me of poisoning him? Why don't you reflect on what you've been feeding your precious son all this time? Mrs. Tran glared and shrieked. It was you, it was definitely you. Every day I fed my son nourishing, clean food. It could only be you. Did you secretly give him outside food, or did you put something in his meals? Screaming, Mrs. Tran pulled out her phone to call an ambulance and the police. Then, with a bang, she slammed the door shut, blocking the exit, afraid I would escape. You lunatic! My gaze shifted to Lucas. Raw pig's brain and raw pork can contain tapeworm eggs. They invade the digestive tract, causing intestinal disease. The larvae of the pork tapeworm can also migrate and parasitize the brain, eyes, heart, striated muscles, and under the skin, causing diseases in those organs. Typical symptoms include anorexia or insatiable appetite, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, decreased vision, and bulging eyes. Lucas's dozens of raw pig brains were not wasted. He had successfully acquired a body full of parasites. Although it was late, the police and paramedics arrived very quickly. Mrs. Tran pointed directly at me, accusing, "She poisoned and killed my son." The police immediately became alert. 3 officers spread out, preparing for an arrest. I sighed, looking at the doctor. Please check for pork tapeworms and their larvae. The doctor behind the police, hearing this, pushed past Mrs. Tran and quickly examined Lucas. Mrs. Tran refused to believe it, clinging to a police officer's arm and screaming, "Don't listen to her nonsense. There are no worms at all. She poisoned my son, arrest her and execute her." But her disbelief was futile. The doctor quickly provided a preliminary diagnosis. Mrs. Tran, Lucas, 3 police officers, and the doctor all got into the ambulance and headed to the hospital. The emergency room worked very quickly in the middle of the night. Only 20 minutes later, the detailed results were in. No one had been poisoned. Lucas was indeed infected with parasites, but Mrs. Tran still refused to believe it. Impossible, absolutely impossible. My son cannot be infected with parasites. These doctors, they must have been bribed by her, conspiring with her to harm my son. The doctor, already annoyed by the night shift, looked at her with contempt at such irrational behavior, not bothering to explain. He handed the results to the police. The police officers reviewed the results, no longer looking at me. They turned and pulled Mrs. Tran into the hallway for a private conversation. 5 minutes later, the police left. Mrs. Tran returned, accompanied by Mr. Tran, who had rushed back. Both of them stepped in front of me. Mr. Tran looked at me, then at Mrs. Tran, hesitated for a moment, and then asked in a low voice, "What exactly happened? First, you said he was poisoned, then you said it was parasites." Mrs. Tran flinched, lowering her head, wanting to avoid the topic after making a scene all night. "How can I let you off the hook? Didn't you just loudly scream that I poisoned your son? Why are you silent now? Speak up." Mrs. Tran's eyes darted a poisonous glance at me, then she mumbled, "In the middle of the night, he suddenly felt unwell, with fever and vomiting. It looked very strange, I'd never seen anything like it. I just thought your daughter Asterisk had fed him something bad, so I called the police. I didn't expect things to turn out this way. Ultimately, saying someone poisoned him is Asterisk your daughter's Asterisk fault. It's also because she didn't try to appease me then, which is why I panicked and made those calls." I frowned, glaring at Mrs. Tran. "It's come to this and you still want to deny your guilt and completely shirk responsibility." Looking back at me, Mrs. Tran, with no logical argument, still raised her voice. "Deny guilt? What guilt? I'm telling the whole truth?" A wave of disgust at her stupidity surged through me. I pulled out my phone and opened an interface, the house I had bought myself. The renovation was almost complete, and I had also bought a few small items. Unexpectedly, the first item I purchased was a surveillance camera. Even more coincidentally, I brought it home, and it was still in the testing phase. Before I could finish my sentence, the audio from my phone played. Eating what it benefits, that is the essence of our ancestors' wisdom. It's surely not wrong. Even today's experts research and find that the simpler the cooking method, the more nutrients are preserved. Combining ancient and modern wisdom, pig's brain inherently nourishes the brain. So wouldn't eating it raw retain all the nutrients? I'm your own mother, how could I deceive you? This is freshly slaughtered pig's brain, eat it quickly. The camera I chose had a large memory, storing all data for up to 3 months before overwriting. So now I had a recording of the entire event. The audio had only played halfway. Before it even reached the part where Mrs. Tran told Lucas to eat the raw pig's brain, she freaked out. Hey, that's recording inside our house. This is my private business. Who gave you permission to play it? While screaming, she lunged, trying to snatch my phone. I leaned away to dodge her. She lunged again, trying to grab it. But midway, she suddenly froze, her whole body recoiling backward. Behind her, Mr. Tran grabbed her hair and forcefully pulled her back. His enraged voice boomed, "You wretch, you made our son eat raw pig's brain. Harming your daughter wasn't enough, you had to harm your son too." Panicked, Mrs. Tran tried to deny it, but it was useless. Mr. Tran was not easily angered, but when he was like a volcano erupting. Heavy slaps rained down on her face, relentlessly. Every day you brag about your bland, boiled dishes being so nutritious. If they're so good, why don't you eat them to become smarter? If anything happens to my son, I will kill you. Mrs. Tran pleaded for mercy repeatedly. But the slaps didn't stop, and her face quickly swelled like a pig's head. A faint sense of pleasure spread through me. I turned around, satisfied, and walked away. My mother's theory of eating what it benefits, and that raw food retains all nutrients, was something Mr. Tran never believed. But in my previous life, Mrs. Tran only targeted me. That's because Mr. Tran often secretly cooked separate meals for me. By high school, Mr. Tran couldn't bear it anymore. Mrs. Tran requested a transfer to a provincial office, planning a long-term absence so she wouldn't have to see his face. Initially, Mr. Tran intended to wait until I finished college to divorce her, but Mrs. Tran resorted to getting pregnant with Lucas. He still wanted Lucas to have a complete family. He planned to wait until Lucas went to college to divorce Mrs. Tran. I knew and understood his thoughts. It's just that later, when Mrs. Tran bullied me, I called him, and he advised me to endure until college, and things would be fine. I was both grateful that he had cared for me as a child and angry that he had later shirked responsibility and done nothing. But tonight, he hit Mrs. Tran, speaking up for me. We were temporarily on the same side, but only temporarily. That night, leaving the hospital, I returned to the old house to pack my bags and moved into my new house, which wasn't fully complete but livable. By the time I finished unpacking, it was already morning. Just as I was about to sleep, Mrs. Tran called, her voice commanding, "Where are you? Hurry your ass to the hospital and take care of your brother. Your big mouth made your father beat me up last night. I can't take care of him. From today on, you're in charge. You'll pay for everything, do you hear me?" I let out a faint, slightly regretful chuckle. I was so busy moving that I forgot to take out the trash. I immediately hung up and blocked those 3 nuisance phone numbers. But Mrs. Tran wouldn't give up, switching to incessant harassing texts. "The doctor said your brother's entire body is riddled with parasites, and some have even invaded his nerves. It's a very serious problem, and it's all your fault. You're his older sister, how could you not stop him from eating? If you had stopped him, he'd be studying for his college exams now, poised for brilliant success. Now, surgery to remove the parasites costs money, and hospitalization for recovery also costs money. You have to bear it all. Lily, don't pretend to be dead. Even faking death won't absolve you of responsibility. You caused your brother to end up like this. Quickly transfer 200,000 VND to this account, or if anything happens to him, I won't forgive you." After quickly scanning through the pile of messages, I unblocked Mr. Tran's and Lucas's numbers, took screenshots, and sent all of Mrs. Tran's messages to them. Since Mr. Tran was still at home for a few days, I gave him the opportunity to settle things properly with Mrs. Tran, and for that wide-eyed wolf who pushed me down the stairs in my previous life to see the true face of the good mother in his eyes. He needed to keep a clear head. About an hour after the messages were sent, Mrs. Tran started harassing me again. "You wretched girl, who gave you permission to send my messages to your father, huh? You quickly tell him you made it all up. Your father beat me so badly my mouth is bleeding. Do you want me to be beaten to death, you low-life trash? How could you send those messages to your brother? He's cursing me now. You dare to do it but don't dare to admit it. You filthy brat. You cowardly tried to break up our mother-son bond. You'll die without a place to be buried. Quickly tell them you made it all up, do you hear? Or I won't acknowledge you as my daughter anymore. Heavens, how could such a good thing happen? I immediately forwarded all of Mrs. Tran's new messages to Mr. Tran and Lucas, then replied, "My dear mother, keep cursing, curse a little more. I'll keep sending them to them to see." Then I added a mocking, laughing emoji. The harassing messages immediately stopped. Unable to extort money from me, Lucas's treatment couldn't be delayed. Finally, Mr. Tran emptied his savings of many years, barely managing to remove 90% of the parasites. The remaining ones were in insignificant locations and would gradually die on their own. Although the parasites were removed, Lucas's condition was not promising. His nerves had been damaged by the parasites, including the optic nerve. The parasites were removed, but the nerves were already injured, and recovery would require a substantial amount of money. Mr. Tran, furious, beat Mrs. Tran again, finally going mad and demanding an immediate divorce. However, they couldn't agree on Lucas's custody. Mr. Tran was ready to earn money for the surgery on the condition that he could take Lucas with him, but Mrs. Tran adamantly refused. She had already driven away her husband and daughter. She couldn't afford to lose her son too. Thinking she was clever, Mrs. Tran dragged Mr. Tran to Lucas's hospital room, asking Lucas, tormented by illness, who he wanted to follow. Having also seen the messages Mrs. Tran sent to me, Lucas irritably threw a cup of water directly at them both. "Damn it, are you two playing ping-pong with me? If you want a divorce and won't take care of me, just say so. One of you never cared since childhood, and the other harmed me and doesn't even dare to admit it. Just wait until I get better, I'll take care of each of you." Mr. Tran was terrified by Lucas's venomous words and fled again. Every day, Mrs. Tran stayed in Lucas's hospital room, cursing Mr. Tran and me. But without money, there was still no money. Venting her anger changed nothing. In the end, she could only neglect Lucas's eyes, but he was already thousands of degrees myopic. Besides the optic nerve damage, Lucas also suffered from anorexia. Knowing his condition, he secretly went online to search for images of parasites. Just one parasite was disgusting enough, but his entire body was infected. He immediately vomited violently, and thereafter, seeing any food would make him vomit. Although both his physical and mental health were in crisis, because there was no money, Mrs. Tran could only bring him home. Mrs. Tran tracked me down at my workplace, her voice humble and pleading, begging me not to be stone-hearted, imploring me to pity Lucas. An 18-year-old boy encountering such a tragedy was truly pitiful, but I reflected, in my previous life, had I committed any heaven-shattering evil that warranted sacrificing my life? No. When they acted against me in my previous life, did anyone raise a hand to help? No, they didn't even give me a chance to explain. I died and my new house belonged to them. Their reaction was like finding gold fallen from the sky, deliriously joyful. My heart, already hardened, now became even more like iron. I flatly refused. One moment she was a pitiful mother. The next second Mrs. Tran's true colors showed. "You stinking brat, don't think I'm begging you. I'm informing you. Don't use the excuse of no money to fool me. Sell your house. If that's not enough, go get married and earn a dowry. Pay up quickly, otherwise I can't guarantee how far this will go." I smiled. I knew exactly how far it would go. The words had barely left my mouth when security arrived. One guard grabbed Mrs. Tran. I had died once. How could I allow myself to fall into danger again? Would my death have been in vain? The moment the receptionist informed me that Mrs. Tran was looking for me, I had already asked them to call security. Aggressive a second ago, Mrs. Tran instantly deflated, struggling in the security guard's grasp. "What are you doing arresting me?" "Let go, she's my daughter. Can't I look for my own daughter?" "Lily, tell them to let go. I'm her mother. What kind of system is this?" I shook my head. "No, this is my workplace. Causing a disturbance in the unit is no longer under my jurisdiction." The security guards escorted the troublemakers out, of course, with no regard for saving face. As soon as Mrs. Tran heard this, she immediately tried to throw a tantrum, rolling on the ground. Two security guards pulled out their batons, their faces cold as stone, signaling their readiness to act. Mrs. Tran froze in terror. They seized the opportunity to grab both her arms, escort her downstairs, and straight out the main gate of the complex. Standing in the middle of the street, Mrs. Tran finally came to her senses, wailing helplessly, crying and screaming, bombarding my phone with messages. "You rotten wretch, how dare you treat me like this? I am your mother." I quickly messaged back, "Dare to come again, and it will be the same next time." Mrs. Tran didn't cling to me for long. She still had to go home to inject Lucas with chicken blood. Now, the college entrance exams had arrived. With Lucas's body in this state, the exams were practically hopeless. But Mrs. Tran still forced him to go, demanding he score at least 600 points. Lucas didn't understand why his mother was so stubborn. Mrs. Tran showed him her phone, displaying a status update on WeChat from the same friend she had competed with for years. The friend was boasting about her daughter's high scores on a mock exam. Mrs. Tran scoffed, "That girl just got lucky. You just try a little harder, use your real ability, and you'll definitely surpass her. How can her daughter compare to mother's precious son?" Mrs. Tran didn't just talk. From then on, whether Lucas wanted to or not, she made him study all day to ensure his obedience. She made all sorts of promises. "After the exams, I'll make your father come back and apologize. Your sister will give you her house as a university entrance gift. Mother will take you out for delicious food, whatever you like." Lucas was half believing, half skeptical, but with his damaged optic nerve and newly developed anorexia, he was utterly helpless. Already lazy, he now had even less motivation to study. But Mrs. Tran didn't care. Now Lucas was a measuring stick in her hand. She had to compare who was higher and lower with that friend. Half a lifetime of competition had turned into blindness that was not easily stopped. Lucas refused to study, so she forcibly made him sit at his desk and do assignments. In my previous life, all this bitter struggle and effort was dumped on me. In this life, Mrs. Tran personally forced him, and he still had to push himself to study. With this body and mind, everything was developing against his true nature. Before, when healthy, he would secretly grumble. Now, there was only hatred. Fortunately, the college entrance exams ended quickly. Lucas was only tormented for half a month. Even though he couldn't study anything during that half month, on the day of the exam, Mrs. Tran still dragged him into the examination room, a pathetic shadow of himself. Lucas completed his 2 days of exams. Before the results came out, I started receiving congratulatory messages from distant relatives I barely knew. "Congratulations, congratulations. Your brother's estimated score for the college entrance exam must be 650 or higher. The official results will surely be even better. Our family has many children who dropped out of school. It's been so long since we had such a talented one. Your brother brings honor to the entire clan. He'll definitely become a successful official later. We're all family, so sisters should visit each other more often. If you have time, come back to the village. Celebrating your brother will also warm our family ties." These absurd congratulations confused me greatly. I subtly inquired. Piece by piece, the truth emerged. It turned out that just like in my previous life, Mrs. Tran had rushed to boast everywhere about Lucas's predicted scores before they were even released. Perhaps it was out of pride, wanting him to score over 600 to beat her friend's daughter, and also a lingering shred of faith in her brain-boosting remedies. In this life, Mrs. Tran was even more arrogant, arbitrarily announcing a score that was even 100 points higher than Lucas could possibly achieve. These distant relatives, who never kept in touch, didn't know the truth. Whatever Mrs. Tran said, they believed. And I received these congratulations, simply because they thought I would also benefit from his perceived success. The deluge of congratulations didn't last long. The college entrance exam results were in. Lucas scored 312 points. Mrs. Tran's friend immediately posted a story, screenshotting Mrs. Tran's boastful post. That mock exam was just to boost confidence for the candidates. What's so great about 600 points? The college entrance exam is over, wait for the scores. Watch my son score 650 points and open your eyes. On the screenshot, Mrs. Tran's friend added a caption. 600 points is indeed low. What's so great about it? My daughter didn't even care about that. That's why she scored 662 points. And you and your son also scored 600 points, huh? Why didn't you surpass it instead of falling below? 312 points. Ha ha ha. Your son would have to take the exam twice just to get 600. Publicly ridiculed, Mrs. Tran completely lost face. At home, she unleashed her anger on Lucas. You good for nothing. Did you grow a pig's brain? Don't you feel ashamed scoring such pitiful points? This trash tier result, don't even dream of ranking second. Why did I ever give birth to such a useless thing like you? In my previous life, when she failed in competition, Mrs. Tran refused to take responsibility. She directed all her anger at me. In this life, she still maintained her habit of never blaming herself, only blaming others. Truly consistent from beginning to end. But Lucas was no better. He ate raw pig's brain, thinking he wouldn't have to study and would still be smart. That hope vanished. His body weakened. He still thought he'd succeed without studying. That hope also collapsed. In such a state, participating in the college exam was destined for failure, yet he was still resented. In my previous life, his anger was directed at me. In this life, all he saw was his mother, incessantly blaming him. He mustered all his strength, eyes bloodshot, and lunged to choke Mrs. Tran. What right do you have to blame me? If you hadn't foolishly forced me to eat raw pig's brain, would I be like this? If you hadn't fabricated non-existent scores for your pride, would I be a laughingstock? Everything is because of you, it's all your fault. Lucas tightened his grip on Mrs. Tran's neck, pouring out all his hatred. But a severely ill, 1.7-meter-tall boy couldn't overpower a healthy person. Mrs. Tran, with a single kick, sent him flying, then pinned him down. You unfilial child, you dare lay hands on me? You want to rebel, do you? I'll let you fight, I'll let you fight. Slaps rained down continuously on Lucas's face. Mrs. Tran hit him and cursed at him simultaneously. Lazy and still want achievements? When I tell you to study, you act like I'm telling you to die. Who did I brag about those scores for? It was for you, to give you confidence. You ungrateful wretch, blaming me, I'll beat you to death, you unfilial child. Lucas struggled repeatedly but couldn't escape. Pinned down, continuously slapped, utterly humiliated, he could only endure in silence. But he didn't endure for long. That very night, Lucas retaliated. Waiting for Mrs. Tran to fall asleep, he took a knife, snuck into her room, and stabbed her dozens of times. Mrs. Tran died on the spot. Lucas didn't flee. After killing her, he called the police himself. It was a serious case, thoroughly investigated. I, who had already moved out, was also summoned to give a statement. At the station, Mr. Tran and my maternal grandparents, the Lin family, were also present. Relatives turned into enemies, cursing and blaming each other. From the interrogation and their mutual accusations, I pieced together everything that happened after I moved out. Ultimately, Mr. Tran and my maternal grandparents agreed on one thing. Mrs. Tran had raised an animal, and they adamantly refused to forgive Lucas. Lucas was sentenced to life in prison. His life became increasingly miserable. His anorexia worsened to the point where he couldn't even drink water. I heard he sent a message for Mr. Tran to visit and say a few words. Not long after, Lucas died from anorexia, a very painful death. Mr. Tran, his spirit broken, collapsed. Eventually, he became bedridden and asked me to take him home to care for him. I simply asked a bland question. Years ago, when you worked in the province, did you ever consider taking me with you? Mr. Tran's lips trembled. At that time, you were in high school, living in the dorm. I thought you were fine. Being fine was enough, wasn't it? In that case, I'll put you in a nursing home. I'll pay the fees in full every month, but I'll never visit. Consider it my repayment for your 15 years of providing food and shelter. As for me, my new house is finally renovated. It's time to start enjoying my life.